How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Comics Unbound with Dustin and Lee. And we've got our great guests with us, Russ and Sarah. Russ Cassedy, an awesome dude, does a lot of really cool stuff with a lot of people we work with. Proud to have him on Team Ethereal as well. So we're going to get talking about Charms in just a little bit. That's their new book that's live right now. I've read it. It's phenomenal. I absolutely love it. Mad fun. Lee, do you have anything you want to throw out there before we get started this evening?
I'd just like to say good morning and good evening to everyone. Welcome to the show. Nice to meet you guys. Later on, we'll have Morgan Quaid and chatting some things. But right now, I think it's over to the big fella because he's got something pretty special happening, about to kick off into the stratosphere. So leave it up to you, my friend.
Right on. I appreciate that. We'll let Russ and Sarah introduce themselves before we get going, and then we'll get right into it, guys.
Yeah, I'm Russ Cassedy. I've been in the comic industry for just a few short years. Right now, I'm doing a lot of Kickstarters for new creators, but I still, draw, edit, letter, the basic stuff. And we're actually just launched our first book, so this will be the first time that we get to go through the growing pains of having a Kickstarter. So,
yeah. And I'm Sarah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lee.
No, you're right. I just said all the fun stuff.
Yeah, Sarah actually, we when I approached her about the idea I had for the book. Go ahead. Go ahead. You weren't saying anything.
I was started to.
No, you weren't.
No, we were in a car ride actually on the way back from a con, and at that point I'd always just help with tables and things, and he said that he had a character idea, and I liked the character idea, and then started shooting off other things and ideas and whatnot, and he told me I was the writer. So yeah, that's pretty much what. So here I am. So
I think that's the tried and true married duo. That's how that works.
I just wanted to save money.
Oh, well, hey, there you go.
Yeah, I didn't know. I really didn't know, this whole thing. He's like, well, I would have just hired a writer, when we'd have disagreements about what a character was going to do or how I wanted to, align, especially, or words.
Right.
Bubbles. And he'd be like, I don't think it sounds right. And I'm like, but it does. And so we'd bicker back and forth a little bit. And I was like, well, what would you have done without me? And he goes, I would have hired a writer. I'm like, whoa. There's a payment in this?
Hey, don't stress. It's the same.
When you're married, it translates to favor.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I think a lot of people that aren't involved in the comic industry really don't understand all of the steps and the people involved in the whole process. And there's a little one.
Sorry.
Hey, look,
they're gonna wander through.
I've got my fair share of little ones running around.
They're gonna wander through. But yeah, I don't think a lot of people understand that. You do have those creators that are the one-stop shop, right? They draw, they ink, they color, they letter, they do everything themselves.
For sure.
And I don't think a lot of folks really understand that in most cases, the person that comes up with the idea for the comic may not be able to do any of that. So they have to hire a writer to write a script to give to the artist. They have to hire the artist to draw it. If the artist doesn't do it digitally or doesn't ink, then they have to hire an inker to ink the pencils. Then you got a colorist, then you have a letterer, and then you have editors after that. It goes on and on and on. And people are like, why are you charging more than $5 for a book on Kickstarter? And it's like,
well, look, hey,
let me break it down for you. Here's how the cost breaks down. And then they're like, oh, I didn't know it was that involved. It's like,
absolutely.
We're not Marvel and DC. We don't get to spread this cost out over 250,000 books.
Well, that's why BGD isn't in previews right now, because we dropped the price to $14.99 already. I can't go any lower than that. You know what I mean? Or it doesn't make any sense. Here we got Morgan Quaid, guys. Morgan is incredible. He's a great dude.
Morgan.
Great writer.
Hello.
How are you, buddy?
So we're going to get into something real quick, and I'm going to bring up all kinds of cool conversation and questions and topics for you guys. It's Mark. How's it going, Mark? He was on the road earlier. I hope he got to where he was going well and in a timely fashion. So anyway, we're going to talk about the listener for a little bit, and we're going to go live with the listener here in about 25 minutes. But anyway, so for those of you guys that don't know, the listener was the first book Ethereal Comics put out. And when we first started putting the book out, it wasn't going to be a comic book. Like it was just a memoirs almost when the idea came up, because my uncle died. It sucks, just like anybody losing a loved one dies, but my uncle used to tell us stories, and he was ate up by PTSD and stuff from being in Vietnam, all kinds of real serious issues with the guy. But he would tell us all his spiritual beliefs and things he dealt with being a native soldier, all kinds of crazy stuff. And when he died, I wrote a eulogy for myself, but I put it on Facebook so it didn't disappear, right? So I'd always be able to find it in the ether. And, Bud Root got a hold of it, and he was like, man, you really need to write something. And then DeBalfo, I reached out to Mike, and I was like, man, I don't know. I was told I need to write a comic book. I really don't know how I feel about that. And he was like, man, look, after reading that, you need to write something. So the listener spawned from that, and it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever done in my entire life. It really was. Aside from opening a comic shop, that was terrifying too. But I mean, this was like you're putting your heart and soul, and the four of you that are in this panel with me can tell anybody involved, you give it everything you've got, from the bottoms of your toes to the tip of your head. You know what I mean? It's everything you've got in these projects. And I was floored when we started putting it together. Like Russ was mentioning earlier, you have to have this, and this to even begin the process, and I had no idea what I was doing. It was a scary thing to go out and go, I'm going to write my first story. I'm going to put it out there. Luckily, my wife was involved as well as my editor. She takes care of me, makes sure I don't too many misspellings or anything. Well, now I don't worry about that because I have a letterer that handles all that for me now. You know what I mean? But it's, and all jokes aside, there are 35 people that work with Ethereal Comics right now, guys. So if if you ever wonder how many people should be on your team or what you got going on, there's a chunk. But we were looking at this book, and I was like, okay, well, we can put less stories out there, and it can be awesome, and people will dig it. But the younger folks are gonna be like, what's going on? What's the draw? You know what I mean? So we wanted the horror aspect to be involved. You know what I mean? What's going on, Steph? So we added a spiritual element, to bring these stories and these tales to life that he had told us. And my wife goes, well, you can't just add native stories. You have to add everybody's stories because you have to be inclusive. You have to involve everyone. And I was like, holy shit, I don't know about half that stuff. So I went from knowing nothing about different religions and groups and sects and what people believed in to studying constantly.
Oh yeah, it's when you're writing something, you have to make sure that you get it right.
For sure.
Because someone that's reading it will know, and they'll call you on it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Man. So when she was writing the, coming up with the story for Charms and everything, she started researching all kinds of stuff because we were originally going to put Taekwondo in the book for tournaments, and she's like, no, we can't do it. No, after doing some research, we can't do Taekwondo. It has to be karate. And so we had to change, some of the plans, but it was because of the research that has to be.
Then it turned out to be really timely. So
it does. It really was. I mean, you have to look at.
It wasn't planned, but
we don't use any dialogue or any types of speech or innuendo that you would use in modern day in the listener. You know what I mean? So it's literally like. You have to watch not just your regular dialogue, but how you approach your regular dialogue. What kind of vehicles were in that time period? Planes, cars, you name it. Clothing, you know what I mean? All these things were super important to us. Buildings, because the first arc of the book, which we're ending in this particular issue, took place in China. So it was like, well, what did people in this region wear? How would they interact with American soldiers or, this or that? And it was quite an experience to learn these things. But I got into the real real meat of theology and religion with the listener, because it's every single religion on earth that we used for this book. So I was pulling gods and deities and monsters and demons from every different sect in the world, to create these characters. And I want to do, I knew that I wanted them to be true to what people saw and believed in and thought, but at the same time, I needed them to be original in my own way, but be as true to them as I could.
Right.
Like in issue 5 coming up within this year, we're introducing the chupacabra, right? And everybody's like, oh yeah, the goat, the goat demon, whatever, the chicken eater and whatnot. But I was like, well, I don't want it to look like a chicken because that's not, or a dog because that's not scary to me, right? So I was like, well, let's look at where the story originated from. Cat goddesses, I've got those. Don't worry, you're gonna get those. I promise.
Steph just wants to draw.
It's circles. I got it.
On things.
That's it, and I'm okay with that. But we ended up doing a Mayan take on like what a velociraptor would look like to take the place of a chupacabra, because I was like, man, if something was going to steal my kid out of my house, it would need to be scary, right? It would need to be really scary for me to be like, oh, fuck, I'm real sorry. You know what I mean? Do what you do.
Yeah.
But it became...
I don't know, man. A plucky rooster can be pretty scary too. I tell you, get on the bad side of them.
What do they call
childhood nightmare memory?
The chook over there, right?
Oh, the chook and ducks. They're bloody sods of things too. I tell you, when you turn your back on them, they give you a good old whack.
You don't want any of that nonsense.
No.
But we wanted this book to be, something that people could get into. So we added the undertones of what alcoholism did to characters, but it's all very fluid, right? It's all very fluid. Like Addie didn't know what the listener was or believe in the listener because of the fact it actually goes live. Well, here, we'll do it at 6:15. We'll do it at 6:15, go live, Mike. But it was like, what are we going to do to show off the things that really messed my uncle up, like alcoholism, PTSD. So we blended it in. Like, so Addie didn't believe his father or anything about the listener because of the fact he's an alcoholic. You know what I mean? So he doesn't trust anything from him. He thinks he's just seeing things and hearing stuff because of the sauce. You know what I mean? So, but the story gets real deep. It's dark, just as gritty as anything else you guys see coming from me, with less comedy overtones like we do in our other books. We give you guys a little bit of things to laugh at. It's a super spiritual horror. It's like, my wife joked about it when she first read the script for book 1 and book 2. She was like, man, it's like, what would happen if the Frighteners and Supernatural had a baby? And I just thought that was the funniest thing in the world. Not to say my book's anywhere near as good as those, but it's pretty good. There's a lot of fun stuff involved. The art's great. The cover talents are awesome. Our graphics artist, he's a pretty good dude too. He's a pretty talented guy. But, so we put a lot of work into the listener. I mean, 4 books in a year, 4 issues in a year. It's our first year of production, and it's been a blast. So now we've got the trade paperback coming out, which this campaign as well. Trade paperback will be over 112 pages. It's actually going to have all 4 issues of the listener plus Guy's journal. Guy's journal is a lot of fun for me. It's a very almost like dungeon manual for the characters in our books. You get some backstory, you get some really nice paintings, like full paintings from that. Really, really enjoyed doing it. But there's something to be said about that. Did you guys, Morgan, you had to do some studying for your stuff, didn't you? You had to get some intel, dig around a little bit.
Yeah, I cheat though, because I'm, so I either go with something I already know. So I've got a theology degree, so I've got a lot of that stuff I could dig into, and then I do weird fiction, super fantasy, weird stuff. So you just make it up because, like, well, how I made the history, I made the science, I made the magic, all that stuff. So yeah, I kind of cheated a little bit, or I do. I think what Russ was saying earlier, I'll come up with an idea and then I'll do a bit of research and I'll think, no, it's too hard. Let's go with a simpler idea that I know I can get right. Yeah, but you always got to do research, of course.
For sure. Well, I'm going to go ahead and hit the button now, guys. So
Not the
Go
button.
ahead, mate. Go
we're
ahead.
going to hit the magic button. And I'll say this as we get going real quick before we get too into this. I'm very grateful to fans. I'm very grateful to the team. And I'm also very grateful to Kickstarter because this will be, I think this is my 8th campaign on Kickstarter. We've funded all the 7 that we've done so far. So I'm very, very grateful. So I know they don't give a shit about my opinion, but I'm grateful to their forum. So let's get this going. The listener, holy cow. Lee, what did you think about it when you first picked it up?
Well, I remember meeting you, maybe 15 months ago and having a yarn. We swapped some comics and we spent a bit of time, waiting on each other's stuff. And one day this rather wonderful package, and you have a name for these packages. A what?
The Geminis. It was
there you go, Gemini packages. I'd never seen one before, and it came with like this lovely little sticker, and I was like, wow, okay, that's a good start. So I popped it open, and there was a lovely little letter in there that you'd trimmed the edges to make it look like an old note that had gone through weather conditions and stuff like that. And I was thinking, this is pretty good, this is good. And then I had an hour or two to myself, and I popped out those issues, and I have to say the writing was solid. I particularly liked Eric's artwork at the time. I don't actually think at that stage I'd seen something like that. What worked for me in particular was, and we discussed this with him months ago, was like his, ability to almost fluoresce the colors and stuff to make things really come out and vibrate off the page. And mate, just enjoyed the comic immensely, to be honest with you. I was super excited to get my hands on issue 3, but then we had our COVID issues kicked into gear, and mailing from America to Australia has become rather difficult and expensive for things. So I've only been able to see issue 3 and 4, through messages and screen stuff that we share. And mate, very happy for you to be able to bring an end to your story arc, to be honest with you, because it's got you started, and you've got plenty of momentum, and we're here today to get it kicking, man. So it's good stuff. Always happy to see a fellow creator doing their thing and getting where they want to go. So let's rock and roll.
I appreciate it so much.
Oh, good, bud.
There's one thing that we always wanted to do was do something different. And when we were chasing artists, and you do that when you first start, guys, you look for an artist. You don't have one. It's not like a magic contact. I mean, other than if you're cool like Russ and are in the industry before you go to do a book, right? But a bunch of us are, like he mentioned earlier, you may not have an artist, you may not have a writer, you may not have these things. And I knew that I wanted to put these amazing pieces on paper and these stories, but I had no idea who I could get to do that. So I did not the greatest thing. So I wouldn't suggest doing it, but I did like a job posting. And next thing you know, it was, my inbox never stopped, and I ended up talking to Eric Viola, who still does all the interiors for this book. And he was such a nice guy, and he was ready to work with me and willing to work with me. Thanks, man. Thanks, Trish. I appreciate it. I just really wanted to have someone that could share in this vision with me and see what I saw. And when Eric came about and started just doodling stuff, I was like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And mind you, when you first start doing this, you have these rose-colored glasses, right? You're so excited. Everything is neat. Every page is like Christmas. You get artwork, and as you do it longer, you start, paying more attention to what's going on. But most of the time, you're like, oh my God, how awesome is this page? And you're sending it to your buddies. You're like, check the page out. It looks so dope. And it should fill you with joy. Every single thing that you do with your project should really fill you with joy. It should never be something you're worried about or something you're fretting. That being said, I think, especially with Kickstarter and stuff, one thing that's important to us is our projects are done beforehand. They're already paid for, everybody's taken care of before the book either launches or the Kickstarter is over. So by the time that the money comes in from Kickstarter, we've already got your books at the printer. You know what I mean? And that's very important to us, so that you guys know the fulfillment is, super, super quick. Like right now, we've already got books going out for BGD 2, and that book's not even due out till the end of next month. So you guys are getting books from that series early. And there's a lot to say about that. And I applaud everybody that puts their books out on time like they're supposed to, because you're trying to build a fan base and you want to take care of these individuals that are taking care of you. You know what I mean? For those of you that don't know, this is my full-time job. This is not my part-time job. I don't have a side gig. This is my jam. You know what I mean? So I'm always out to make sure you guys get the best product we can possibly give you. That being said, there's a lot to it. Oh yeah, I know, Mike. I know the shoe cover. I'll talk to you about the shoe cover. Just back for the trade paperback, Mike. I know what you guys want. Yeah, I know what they want. I know. Well, there was a cover that for the trade paperback, and it'll be available a little bit later than the regular cover for the trade, but it's going to be really cool. And it's part of a almost not, I don't want to say a rewards group, but we've had fans since book one of the listener that have picked up almost every single one of our books, from the listener to BGD to the previous books. And the reason I haven't announced it or really gone in there and brought it up is because I don't have a name for the group yet. And I didn't want to be like, oh yeah, we got this special cool group, but I don't know what the hell I'm gonna call you guys. But it's basically thanking folks for like, it's almost like a Patreon that you don't have to pay for. You know what I mean? So I'm very excited about it. It'll be involved with the new website. The new website's almost done, so super hyped about all that. Do you guys have any questions about the listener? I know that Morgan has read one issue, I believe, right?
First two.
Yeah. Well, what were your thoughts, Morgan? Because you and I think we got them pretty similar times, I think. So.
Yeah, I got them, I think, just a bit after you got them. So I love the story and it gets in pretty deep, pretty quick. And I remember Dustin talking about his writing process and all that sort of stuff. Of course, the artwork is the first thing you see, but being a writer, I'm always interested in writing. Yeah. So that was really interesting to me, and I could kind of see, as I'm reading, I could see all the stuff that you were talking about as the process, almost like a catharsis of the process of writing and remembering, and kind of the family history and all the rest of it. And I love the blend of kind of harsh realities of war with this kind of mystical, spiritual aspect, almost like how a lot of poetry is written it comes out of war, or historically has done in World War II and everything. I got that kind of vibe that there's this these sort of two levels, the kind of harsh, gritty reality, and then this other spiritual kind of level. So yeah, I really like the blend of those two things. And again, as a writer, I like writers. I like reading writer stuff.
For sure. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Issues. You guys are both supposed to be getting the digitals for issue 3 and 4 in the next couple weeks. As soon as issue 4 is lettered, you guys will get your digitals for that. But there's something I'm proud of it, and I think that stands for a lot. I'm proud of the product. I'm proud of the fan base. I'm proud of all the teams. Before we get into Russ and Sarah, which we're about to jump into in just a second, let me show you guys some of the covers. And we're really, really proud of them. Our cover teams have been phenomenal. We've got a couple new faces, but at the same time, we've got a couple that have been with us the entire run. And we'll start with Adam Fields. He's a great guy. He's a great creator. He does a lot of interior work. He's actually about to be on Greed as well. So I'll show you Adam's cover. Really like that a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Sweet.
So this portrays Nostos. Nostos is one of our noble spirits. You get to see a lot of Nostos in book 1 and book 2, actually. And when he becomes a noble spirit, nothing really changes about the character. His, the way he acts, the way he carries himself stays about the same. But he's real nonchalant about most things. He tries to look at things half glass full instead of half glass empty type of deal. But he is the first one to decide that the betrayer, and we're not going to give any story away or anything like that, but the betrayer needs to go. And in book 3, he starts hunting that individual, and it culminates in issue 4. So really, really stoked about it.
It's a great cover, man.
I think so. I think it's a lot of fun. It hides Russ, though, when we put it up there.
Oh, no, it's
I don't
perfect.
mind. I can slide and he
No,
can
it's-
slide.
It's actually perfect because she claims that I hog the camera too much on the other shows that we've
Oh,
been on. I'm like, there you go. Cover me up. Let her be on.
I don't know if that's exactly what I said. I said he talks the whole time. You'll see.
Thank you. Thank you.
He says I give too much of the book away, though. So then
Oh,
I have
gosh.
to,
Well, I'm guilty of that, too, so don't feel bad.
She'll win.
You get so excited about telling the story. I mean,
I'm
it's just
pretty excited about
no.
it.
That's what I'm saying, Dustin.
Sorry,
It's
we'll shut up. All right.
it's the same way. I mean, you get excited
Yeah.
about babies.
I try. So if I didn't have Heather and Joe, Bladen Hunter reaching out, and who's our art director, he's a great guy, reaching out and going, hey, look, don't give away too much. Hey, look, don't give away too much. And I have so much fun, though, right? Because I'm literally like, I enjoy showing you guys stuff, and I enjoy making people smile and, making people hyped. Because another thing to talk about before we get too far into it is we put out books every 6 weeks, guys. So you're literally getting a new book every 6 weeks from us. And it's important for me to, like, you'll see me talk about The Listener, then you'll see me talk about Greed, or you'll see me talk about If It Hops, or Babes Going Dinosaurs, or Theater 7, you know what I mean? Because all these books, to me, they come out very quickly, because we're working on them months and months before you guys even see them. So I'm constantly going, oh, what book was I working on today? Oh, let me reach over here. What team of artists am I working with for this particular, issue? And then I'm like, okay, so it's Tuesday. This is the team we work with on Tuesday. You know what I mean? So we're trying to get everything together and give you guys the best experiences, like I said, we possibly can. So jump back onto some more of these covers real quick, show you some other ones that were really, really cool. And the last one we'll show you guys before we get into Charms is I'll show you guys the Year of the Blue Flame exclusive, which I'm very, very excited about. This is Jen Leonard's cover with colors by our good buddy Carrie Ann, and I thought it was a lot of fun. It's got this very artistic feel to it, and art being subjective, I try to look at things in a different format sometimes.
I think, mate, I reckon I like your listener covers just from what I've seen, because each one of them's different. You don't
Absolutely.
have that. You've got your action one, but then you've got that one, which is a bit more spiritual, ethereal type thing.
Right.
Like moving on to a great pose that's coming up. One of my ones that I particularly like with On the Rooftop, I think is a great cover, particularly colors in that one. That really worked, because I saw that in black and white, and then when I saw the covers come to it, I was like, wow, okay.
That's a big thing for me, because that's your specialty, black and white. So I think any kind of compliment like that is super, super powerful when it comes from people that focus on a certain style, to go, damn, that's cool even in the other style, and then we'll get into so we added Michael Yakutis to the team for the listener covers, and he blew my mind. Like, we know David Acampo can color, right? Because he's been with us since book 1. So we know the guy does beautiful covers, color covers, interior colors. He does a lot of work for us. But this was something, man. Like, I was like, holy cow. Like, he didn't like this. This is cover 1 from him. So I was like, man, dude has really come to play. And I mean, that's just the coolest image. I couldn't, I was blown away. Now I have this thing for this, what is it? Like sky porn. You know what I'm talking about? You guys seen this thing on the internet now where they take beautiful pictures of like clouds and stuff, and everybody's like, oh, that's great. Yeah, that cover messed me up. So, and then of course we've got Eric Viola's cover. Awesome.
Ooh.
That's a good one, man.
You know,
I like Eric's cover.
He's super talented. Like I said, he's been with me for, I don't know, 19, 20 months now. We've been working together. Absolutely love working with the guy. He does all the interiors for the listener. Great stuff. And then, so I mentioned we were doing this group and this appreciation group and whatnot. This year we've started with the listener. This is the first issue that we're doing it. We're calling it the Year of the Blue Flame, hashtag Year of the Blue Flame, due to the, you know, the business logo and whatnot, the publisher logo. Next year is the Year of the Digital Flame. So I'll explain what those are real quick. So what it does is it's every book has one of these drop. There's only so many of them that we're going to do. I think it's 75 for this one, Russ. So 75 for this book. There's only 75 copies of it. And next issue will have 75 of that issue. It'll have its own Year of the Blue Flame cover. And we highlight an artist on each of these Year of the Blue Flame covers. So by the end of the year, there'll be a packet that'll be available, and we're only going to do like 6 of them. So if you guys don't have your full Year of the Blue Flame and you're not part of the group, you'll be able to still get that packet if you so choose. You'll be able to reach out and grab a packet of them. But if you are part of the group, you'll always have access. Even if you miss one, you'll be able to go, hey, Dustin, or hey, you know, Bladen, or hey, Russ, or hey, whoever. Reach out to somebody. Somebody will make sure you can get a copy of it. And that's this cover. I mean,
It's a good one too.
I was floored by it. That's Bladen Hunter's cover. He does all the interior artwork for BGD. He does all of it for If It Hops. Just an incredibly talented individual. And he's also our art director. So if you guys are ever looking to work with Ethereal Comics, that's the guy to talk to. He'll hook you up, tell you what you need to do, submissions, and all that good jazz.
He can draw, that dude, eh? As someone that draws, man, like I look at his stuff and I get a bit jelly. I start thinking like, oh, you know, like
he's a mess, dude. Like he's talented.
He knocks out some good pages, I tell you. It's
like I fuck with him sometimes. I'm like, hey, what is that? I know exactly what it is. You know what I mean? But I'll be like, oh, what do you got going on over there? I don't quite know what that is. And is being as humble as he actually is, he'll be like, oh my gosh, what did I mess up? And I'm like, I'm just
you send him into a meltdown, the poor bugger. He's in a closed room, man, like pumping out these pages. And
I keep him in the basement. I don't let him up. I keep him in the basement, you know?
Yeah. Don't let him out until the page is done.
You know, I feed him Mountain Dew and Cheetos. I just drop it down a little
healthy diet.
Yeah. Well, now Mountain Dew here, you can get the alcoholic Mountain Dew. So that's what I shoot down there.
What?
So just for a treat, you know, you get the alcoholic Mountain Dew. I just shoot it down the chute, you know. Anyway,
I live off lemon water and rice cakes, mate. That's what keeps me going.
Hey, well, that might be where you come up with some of the crazy stuff you come up with.
I know, as I'm crunching through those rice cakes, mate, you know, like just ideas pop like the rice, you know.
That's it. Like it's like a Rice Krispie treat. He's just over there they're just popping in his mouth. All right. So now that we're done talking about things popping in your mouth, let's we'll reach over here to Russ.
Quite the segue, I'm not sure.
We'll reach over here to Russ and Sarah. We'll talk about Charms. Before we get talking about it, though, I want to let you guys know, like I mentioned, I have read it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, there's a lot to be said about indie comics. I try to read as much as I can possibly read, you know, but sometimes things stick out to me. You know what I mean? And not just because Sean's on my team, not just because Russ is on my team. The book it's great. I mean, it's original. It's fresh. It's something my kids can read. I don't have to worry about it. You know what I mean? So anyway, we'll let you guys get into it. I just want to let you know that it's a great book, guys. I'm proud of you. It's awesome.
No, thank you. It was one of my hopes when it was something different and original. You know, I mean, because DC has Vixen, right? So with Vixen, you know, she's got the necklace and she can basically have the like power, or not the power, but like the strength of an elephant, or she doesn't actually turn into an elephant, she doesn't summon an elephant, but she gets like the power of an elephant, or the speed of a cheetah, so that she moves faster. So I was concerned about that, but I want having someone with a bracelet that had animal charms on it, that they could basically take the charm off and throw it, and it turns into the animal. The main character is going to end up with a grizzly bear, a big bear, right. And it's different than anything else that I had really thought of, or seen in comics, anyways. For sure. So, and Sarah reads a lot. She reads a lot of novels, and so when I started talking to her about the idea, things just started coming to her, and she started saying all kinds of things. And then what did I say?
I was stealing his idea. Running off with it.
Look, it's not my book anymore.
Well, hey, last I checked, though, you guys feel free to beat me or anything, but didn't you say she got to be the writer?
That's eventually, when she was going on and on and on and on and on and on. I'm like, you know what? Why don't you just write it? And she's like, what? And I'm like, why don't you just write the book? Yeah. She's like, I've never written a book. And I'm like, you just have to come up with a script, and and we'll give the script to the artist, and basically let him go to work. And when I was looking for a specific art style for an artist, and I knew Nate Lovett. He's here in Ohio with me, and I'm like, he's done work for Nickelodeon and other companies, and he's done his own book and other books, and I'm like, you know what? I'm like, he's
make a horrible noise.
Get out of here!
Really quick.
Get out of here!
We have he's so old. We love him, but
he's gonna sit here and hack behind him.
It's horrible.
Go get out of here! No. You're ruining the show.
Don't stress. I'm constantly interrupted by my two dogs as well, mate.
We're all talking.
An organic, free form thing here, mate. So
it's not good. He's old, and
when I was looking at Nate's work, I knew that Nate would be able to help us build the pages, right? Because normally you give the artist a script, and he follows your script. And they then draws it specifically to what you're looking for. And when I approached Nate, I'm like, hey Nate, look, we don't really know what we're doing with the script. To be honest with you, it literally was page 1. This is what I happened on page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5.
It wasn't
that
bad.
It had everything laid out on the pages, but it wasn't panel 1. This is what this person is saying.
I wrote book 2 better.
Right, exactly. But
I know what
book
to do
1
now.
Was not like that. So we really relied on Nate a lot to help us with the flow of the panels.
For sure.
And he really did. He did a great job with that. When we got the pages back, we were working on the lettering. Sarah's like, well, this is supposed to be the first, this person's saying this the first. I'm like, right. But we didn't tell Nate that. They're on the right side of the page.
And he would come in and go, well, no, we just can't have that. And I'm like, but it has to be in there. Figure it out.
For sure.
So we made it work.
Right.
I read a lot about. I've lettered some books.
Right.
But I wanted to letter this book myself because it's our book.
Mm-hmm.
So I read a lot about just different lettering styles and what not to do, kind of thing. Keep the characters when they're looking at another character. Don't put bubbles in between their eyes. That kind of thing. So
don't make the mistake of hiding people's head with a bubble and all that jazz.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those skills, and we work with SK, and we really like him, and he does letters. He letters all our books, But I learn from you guys, just like anybody else. I learn from my peers. I learn from my teammates. And I've gotten to the point where with the listener, I do all the dialogue beforehand, right? I do all the dialogue. I send the dialogue to Eric and the whole jazz so he can read it and he can figure out where he wants to put things. But he and we go page by page together, which is different than any other team we have. We literally do every single page together. Like we'll go instead of how Morgan, you guys would get a thumbnail, right? You get a thumbnail from your artist and whatever else. Well, what I do now with him is I literally go together. We sit for hours and we thumbnail these books together. And then, unlike what I do with other projects, but I also understand the lettering aspect of it because I would send, like I said, I would do all my dialogue beforehand. Well, with BGD, Babes, Going Dinosaurs, and If It Hops, I letter after. Like I do all my dialogue after. So I'll give Bladen all the pages and I'll give him concepts. It's always loose with me. So if an artist wants to change something a little bit, they can do whatever they want. But the dialogue is always written after because I can't remember who said it to me. I was on a show one day and man, I'm gonna kick myself for not remembering. But they were like, Dustin, do you hear the characters? And that hit me like a ton of bricks. Do I hear them? And it was a very eye-opening thing when I realized when I saw our characters on the page, I knew what they sounded like after that. When they didn't have dialogue, I knew what they sounded like when they had no words. I was like, oh, that's very interesting. So for those titles, we don't even add the dialogue till after the fact, because I don't even know what they're saying. I know what I want their faces to look like, and I know what I want their expressions to be and stuff. Because you read the room, right? You read the situations that's going on between people. It's almost like a silent film. You're literally going, oh yeah, well this could work. I'd like them to get this across. I want the reader to feel this. But then it's like, okay, well, what are they actually talking about? But
one of the things that I learned a long time ago, Dustin, sorry to interrupt, was
please.
I can't remember where I read it, but it was many years ago, and it broke down like basic comic book, like 101, sort of thing. And it said a comic book should be treated predominantly like a silent film. Like, how you can watch a silent film, no dialogue, but you can still understand exactly what's happening right up until the end. And the example it gave, like, if you watch a TV show, TV shows are edited to suit that 1 hour format and stuff like that. You can't exactly watch a lot of TV shows without dialogue.
Right.
So I'm always, for Battle for Bustle and anything I've done, I've always tried to keep a bit of a cinematic type feel to the artwork and the flow. You can watch them on different angles and different things like that. Because the funny part is with Russ and Sarah, just listening to you guys, is I do a comic book called Battle for Bustle in Australia, and my missus Tam and I do it together. And because I'm so predominantly taken up with the artwork these days myself, like Tam has sort of evolved into the main writer, like I've sort of got synopsis, know what the beats and the bumps are, and I'm doing the artwork. And the great part is, one of the things that I enjoy is Tam coming along and giving her thoughts and processes to what certain words should be, like, how could we do this, how could we do that. And it gives a whole I would say it gives a whole new dynamic to the way things roll when you've got someone else that you're bouncing ideas off and stuff. It can get a little bit, like angry sometimes, though, can't it, you, Pam? You have a little disagreement here and there.
I have to tell this, and he gets upset at me a little bit, but just because it's kind of braggy for me and kind of ha-ha for him. When he would put everything down, he actually put starter bubbles with what he thought the characters might say, right? And so with the fighting scenes and those early scenes with the adults that are already doing some of this stuff, I don't want to give too much away again, I left a lot of that because I thought, okay, that's his contribution. Let me see what I can leave. And then I did the teen stuff, the dialogue between the teens, the stuff that they were going through, all of that. We shipped it off to folks to read. And
I am absolutely in love with it. So whatever.
Hold on. So here's what happened. So we shipped it off to folks to read, and they came back, and one of the guys that he's like, I value what his opinion. I really want to see what he says. Because I don't, he knows the folks in the industry. I've met a lot of them, but not worked, that's what he does.
Go on.
Anyway,
Get through this.
It came back and he says, I love the dialogue between the teenagers. the whole book needs to sound like that.
Mhm.
So
okay, but let me explain. Let me explain.
It's like because I didn't know if I knew what I was doing.
Okay, so I
You know?
use an application called Comic Life 3. Okay, if you've never heard of Comic Life 3, it's a lettering application.
I could use it.
I was able to use it. It's simple. It's like a $60 application. You put it on your Mac or PC, and you basically drag your comic pages into it, and then it has chat bubbles and sound effects that you drag onto the page, and you type the words in there. It's super simple to use.
Right.
And and I've been having folks that write basically asking about this app because it's one of those things where if you're a writer and you want to figure out where and how much dialogue you can have in a panel or that kind of stuff, here you go. This is the perfect application. Because then once you can figure out where you want your dialogue, then you can export all those pages, send them to your letterer, and be like, here you go. This is what everything needs to say, and and work your magic type of thing.
For sure.
But Sarah is a novel reader, okay, and
Keep saying that like it's a negative.
It's not a bad thing. We love novel readers. That's fine.
It's not a negative, but comics are a different format. And you can put too many words on a comic page. And I'm an art guy. So I wanted to make sure that the art was able to be seen and not littered with words.
Biggest worry with me is that
words get in the way.
He kept saying, he's like, you're covering the art. If we add another bubble, and I'm like, but he's over here and he needs to be, but that covers up the art. Like it was a whole.
But anyways, yeah. I basically went through and I lettered the whole book, all 24 pages. And I said, here you go. This is just temporary placeholder stuff. Put your stuff in it.
He did.
And basically that's what she did. But the book bounces between two different arcs. There's a jungle battle scene and the teenagers going through their daily lives in a karate tournament. That's what it's bouncing back and forth between.
Yeah.
So Sarah basically took all the parts with all the teens, so their daily lives in the tournament, and she basically tweaked all of that stuff the way.
There's a less action in those two, so I knew they needed to tell. I could give more things away in those.
More character depth.
Yeah.
And then she didn't edit the fight scenes so much, and that was mainly my stuff. So when I have an editor named James Patrick who writes for Aftershock Comics. He just wrote Kaiju Score, and he's written for Harley Quinn, Batman, Green Arrow, and he's local to me. So, I reached out to him, and he had actually given me some advice early on, in the creation process about, do you want to self-publish? Do you want to, entertain talking to a publisher about, pitching, that kind of thing. And, but anyway, so, James is like, look, the dialogue between the teens is really strong. I like it. The other stuff is more like they're trying to explain something versus just talking to each other.
Right.
And so he's like, I would reapproach that. So Sarah did. She went back and she's like, you know what? We'll just rewrite.
And I told him, I'm like, but I feel bad. He's like, just write it. Do that.
I don't care.
Later.
I mean, it's not that I don't care about the story. I want the story to be strong. I want people to be interested, but I'm more invested in the art.
Absolutely. There's a scene that I was thrilled with, and I'm not going to give it away, but you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a scene where they're looking at like this room that should be like this absolute massacre, and you guys play it so well. That, like I mentioned earlier in the show, that my kids could read this book. And I think it's really, really cool the way that you use the dialogue without having to use expletives to get what you want the point across that you're talking about and feeling and thought processes. And you also have great layouts. I mean, you don't have to show the monster and you know what I mean? You don't have to show the monster for people to know the monster's there.
And that was intentional.
So, absolutely. I'm sure.
The adults would get more out of that, but the kids could read and not be.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's a teen plus book. That
was our goal. So only the teens swear because that felt very real to me as a gamer.
Right. Yeah.
If you've ever gamed with 12 and 13-year-olds, they think that every other word needs to be a swear word. I'm not sure. Absolutely. It's an age thing. And so the teens for me did swear. but I took all of the swearing really out of the adults. We did different words for that because that didn't feel as authentic. We had them in there, but then it felt like, well, you're just putting it in there to put it in there. And it was, so yeah, I did a lot of rewriting of bubbles, and I learned too, little to big to little. So the next book, I was very conscious of that, even with the ideas of what they potentially could say.
What she's saying is, when you're lettering a book, you can't have the word supercalifragilisticexpialidocious at the top of the bubble or the last word of the bubble. The bigger words have to be in the middle of the bubble, because a bubble is, circle or oval shaped, and you can't, it won't fit if you try to put a huge word at the top or the bottom of the bubble. So
for sure. So let me ask you guys so going forward, the main character is a young girl who gains these awesome charms. Okay.
Right.
She gains these awesome charms. I love the atmosphere you've created with this character and what she's going through, because it feels real to me. Like, I was very grateful to Morgan and Lee both, who talked about the listener, how it feels real. If you go into something and you're writing something and people immediately know that it doesn't fit, you know what I mean? If it doesn't fit, they don't want to read it. Like, I could spend $29 on a hardback, because that's what we collect. If I spend $29, $30 on a hardback and I don't enjoy it within the first 10 to 15 pages, and I don't believe the characters or believe in them, you know what I'm saying? If I can't feel for them or vibe with them, I put it down. And I do that with my favorite IPs. You know what I mean? If there's an Aliens book called Bug Hunt, right? It's great, but it's an anthology of stories. So the first story, I was like, man, I can't feel it. I'm not into it. And my wife's like, it took forever to find the book. First off, you're going to read it.
You're going to read it.
You're going to read it. So she was like, why don't you skip that story in the anthology and then pick it up in the rest of it, And I was like, oh my gosh, I almost missed out on this totally awesome book because of 15 pages. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but you guys have a way of making these young girls feel very believable, and like, I have an 11-year-old daughter, right? And right now we're going through shenanigans because she's 11 and going on 40. Yeah. So,
that's a lot of birthdays all at once, mate.
The character, the main character, originally, when I originally had the idea, she was going to be like 12 or 13. But then we decided to age her up a little bit, because we were going to put her in certain situations that were going to be rough for someone that young.
Right.
But it was, my daughter, it was basically loosely based on my own daughter, who's, she's 15 now. But she went through her time where she was, had her hair blue and everything else. So
we didn't even tell him that. That's the funny thing. Did not tell him that. And it literally, I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay.
See, that's so, man. So, and I hate to cut you guys off, but I love talking to creators. I think it's the coolest thing in the world. How cool is it when things are dynamic, right? Like, you don't have to do shit, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, that's just the coolest thing. Like, sometimes artists give us things that we didn't even know we wanted. You know what I mean? Like, holy cow. There was a scene. So, all right, all joking aside, BGD inside Piece of Tail, the bar, there's a big curtain in the back, and you see it in every issue of BGD, at least for a moment. And to me, I thought it was a mammoth. Now, this is a running joke in my house and with everybody that works with us. I thought it was a mammoth skull, right? Like, coming down and 2 humps and then 2 horns. You know what I'm saying? It's actually 2 chicks, and I didn't get it through the whole time, right? Like, I had no idea. We've got a meeting and with this major group of people going on, and I'm like, man, like, it's the little things, like the mammoth in the background. And Bladen's like, what fucking mammoth are you talking about? I was like, the mammoth in the background. He's like, that's 2 chicks. And I was like, oh, and I couldn't unsee it after that, Like, oh, so
you didn't memo me in on that thought
process.
Yeah,
I had no clue. And there's little nuances that artists put in their own touches and stuff like that. But if you find the right person for your project, it's like it's what do they say? You zing, right? You zing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it becomes this incredibly powerful moment where you're like, this is my book. This artist is a part of my book. You know,
Right.
they've helped me bring this piece to life. And
Yeah.
you just get to the point where it's very symbiotic. You know, like I don't say hardly anything to Bladen. Like outside of like actually working, I don't get in there and tell him how to do his job, you know, but it's like every time I get something back, it's like, huh, you know what I mean? So, and that's what I was talking about earlier. It's like Christmas when you get panels, when you get
Yeah.
images back, and you're literally like
every cover, every page, everything. You're just like,
man, look, when Russ
I want
puts the graphics together for things, I almost pee. I get so excited. I'm like that little puppy in the background, like the old puppy that can't hold it anymore. I'm like, oh, it's so good. That's just so good. But yeah, it's very exciting. Anyway,
I'd like to actually, I'd like to get Morgan in on this and get his opinion, because Morgan is a very prolific writer of comics such as Idle Thuggery, Enmity, Shadow Dancer, which is a series out here now. That's on Indiegogo at the moment too, isn't it, Morgan? You're doing a
Shadow's Daughter. Yeah.
Shadow's
That's on
Daughter.
Indiegogo.
And like the man over the course of the last 12 months has just been pumping stuff out, and novels as well. Mate, with what Russ and Sarah and Dustin are saying, you as the writer and you reaching out to artists and things like that, you know, like what's your process there, mate? Do you stick a wanted ad in the newspaper, or have you got someone in particular that you go after? If you know, like, because you got a lot of work happening, so you'd be getting a lot of people coming to you and lots of different artwork as well. So what's your whole, you know, like thoughts on this, mate?
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it's a lot of trial and error and a lot of auditioning. And if you find someone great, you do whatever you can to keep them. But I've found it's a bit like a not a revolving door. It's like if you have young people that come and work for you for a period of years, but you know they're going to go somewhere else eventually. So while you've got them, you do everything you can with them, but you know it's probably not going to last. Because a lot of indie artists, you know, the price will go up the better they get with quality, and or they'll get picked up by a big publisher or something, and then you've kind of lost them for a period. So it tends to be there's about 3 or 4 that I use regularly, but then others that come in for a period, and you know I might not be able to keep them. But with what the guys were saying, it's exactly right. I'll write. So I'll depending on the artist, some will want full storyboards, some will want just a script. Most of what I do comes from novels I've already written, so I've already got kind of a fair idea. But visually, very little clue of what I'm doing. I'll have a rough idea, but not much. So it'll be rough when it goes to the artist, and then pretty much you tell me how you think this would work best. Show me what angles you think would work, and even the little details on the characters. If I haven't fleshed out exactly what hair color and profile and all that sort of stuff look like, the artist will just come up with something, and 9 times out of 10 what they come up with is something I haven't thought of, and it makes it better. So of course you go with that because they're the experts and they do this thing all day every day, and also they have a style, so I want them to come up with something in their style, and then that sort of lends that to the project instead of me saying, hey, do it the way I would do it when I'm not an artist, you know. So yeah, you definitely lean on the artist a lot.
So when you're like, I guess you said the word auditioning people, like, do you just see their artwork and give them the script, or do you yarn to them, mate, and like, have a gas bag and see what sort of person they are as well, and see how you gel with them together as a team, or a potential team, like, or do you just sort of send the script off, get the artwork back, and just go, yeah, that's for me. Let's run with this person. That's what I want.
Yeah, it's like usually a 2-page trial is what I'll give them a rough idea of the story. I'll say, can you do two sample pages? Here's the 2, the script pages. I'll look at their artwork first. I'll try and find anything I can on the net about them, you know. But usually, I mean, if you see the artwork, you think, okay, that's the sort of thing I'm looking for. That's great.
Yeah.
And then because it's also, and I mean, Dustin, you know this a million times. It's how quickly, it's the quality, it's the. Are you going to get an email at 3 a.m. that says, hey, man, you know, my fridge is broken and this is happening. Can you give me, you know, $3,000 and then I'll definitely get the artwork? That, you know, there's all of those extra things outside of the actual artwork that make up what makes an artist that you can really work with. So I usually find over 2 pages, sometimes you lose the money and it just doesn't happen, or you think it just isn't working. But it's a good test, and then at the end of it, you decide, all right, am I going to invest the larger amount for the full issue? Because it's the same as Dustin. I don't like running a Kickstarter or Indiegogo or anything if I haven't completed the work or very close to completed, because you want people to know, have confidence that it's done and they're going to get it and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's a bit of backwards and forwards, and honestly, that usually the only issue that I've got is if there is someone that their personal life is just, you know, all over the shop and they just can't keep that stability. That usually sometimes it's like, well, we can't do it. It's not going to work. But most of the time, you know, you find a good way of working with people.
The mesh is there, I think. You know, if you can find somebody that the key is, and a lot of people don't quite understand this when they first started, because I didn't get it right when I first started, is finding people that are invested. People don't just look for somebody that's looking for a payday, because I got news for you guys. There's a million artists out there every day.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Don't look for the person that needs a payday. Look for the person that's investing themselves. You'll never hear me, and I've said it a million times, you'll never hear me call our teammates contractors. You'll just never hear it, because they give a shit about the product. They give a shit about the work they put out. They give a shit about the story. Half these ladies and dudes that work with us reach out to me faster than fans do to find out what's happening next. You know what I mean? It's a very relevant thing and powerful thing when people are like, hey, look, I really enjoy this. This is what I think we should do next. This is the type of cover I think we should pull out, you know, and all of our books are different, right? Any IP for Ethereal is different. Like you look at the listener covers, they're very different from BGD covers. They're very different from If It Hops covers, so on and so forth. But there's this, you create, you know, it's like you surround yourself by people that you want to be around. And that's what you have to do. Surround yourself with a team of positivity. Not everybody is roses and sunshine every morning. You know what I mean? But you still have to understand that these are real people. You know, they have real lives. But at the same time, if they're as invested as you are, they'll be around. They'll want to be on the next project. They'll want to see you succeed. You know, and one of the simplest things is this. And Russ and I have had this conversation. Lee and I have had this conversation. And Morgan, I'm sure you've seen it yourself. There's if you're proud of it, you share it, you talk about it. It only takes a minute of your time. You know what I mean? And those little nuances make such a difference for an indie creator. And I'm really proud to see, like Russ's campaign right this second, people that are on our team go, hey, look at this cool book, you know, and our fans. Look at this cool book. We know Russ. We like Russ. Look at this cool book that he and Sarah are putting out. Then you go, yeah, man, check out that cool book, because you want people to succeed. You want your team to succeed. You know, I use the analogy with Todd McFarlane a lot, because he didn't create Image by himself. You know, a lot of people are always like, oh, you know, Todd, you know, well, that too, you know what I mean? Just a little bit. A little bit of the fear, self-loathing, you know what I mean? I catch that. And fear is normal, right? Like I just talked about it earlier. I was scared to death to put out the first issue of Listener. Until like 6 months ago, I had the worst feeling like I didn't belong. You know what I mean? I had this like terrifying, conflicting feeling that when I'd be out to dinner, right, with these AAA creators and be like, oh man, am I supposed to be here? Am I allowed to be here? You know, and then
that's my reality all the time right now.
Right. And then they reach over and they're like, hey man, I loved this panel on page this. And you're like, oh, Me too. You know, I mean, it's great. So it becomes this really cool thing where, like I said, it's very symbiotic. You know, you create this relationship, but it's up to you to foster that. As the creator, you are going out and you're lifting these individuals as much as they're lifting you. You know, I could go on and on about what I think the society of it is and the way that we should treat each other. But in reality, man, the book doesn't succeed without everybody. It just doesn't. You know, if there's, you know, what was that? The X-Men title, right? What was it was X-Men Blue, right? A couple years ago, where he got all pissed off and put the anti-Semitic stuff in the art, and nobody saw it till after it got printed.
Yeah.
You know what I
remember reading that. Yeah.
Millions of copies get printed. That's what happens when you treat people like shit. So pay your people. Treat them like they deserve to be treated, like you would want to be treated, and you won't get crazy shit in the background of your books that you didn't see. You know, now watch, somebody's going to put some shit in there just to mess with me now.
Yeah, like a mammoth skull.
That's what I was going to say.
Man, look.
Maybe he'll see girls. You never.
Right? Yeah. You know, Hale is a friggin' it's a gentleman's club, so it's real. I was like, that's cool looking, big old skull on the back of the bar. You know what I mean? And then he's like, no, those are butts and stuff. And I was like, oh. That's great. I like it even more now. Had I been smart enough to figure it out, it'd have been even better. You know. But so let me ask you guys this. So when it comes to characters, like and I don't want to give away too much because I'm not that guy. So there's a really cool thing where at a point you see more than one, we'll call them totems, because that's relevant to the listeners. So we'll call them totems for right this second. So when you see these totem animals, you know, from the charms, how many are in the first issue, do you think?
There's not a lot. Just is it 3?
I remember one
Yeah,
that
I believe it's three animals in the first book.
I'll say
a lot
this,
more
guys.
in the second.
Yeah, there'll be a lot more in the second book.
There is no small with these animals. It is very
No. So I knew I have ideas in my head, and you know, it's one of the. I told Sarah, I'm like, I hate driving now, because anytime I drive anywhere, I always miss where I'm going. You know, I always go the wrong way, whatever, because I'm thinking about the book, and you know, things that just pop into my head in the book, and you know, so like I told Sarah, I'm like, you know, I told the artist, I'm like, yes, they're animals, but they're all bigger than they would normally be in real life. So, you know, in one of the covers, it has the main character, you know, which will be the main character riding on a bear. You know, she's on the back of a bear. The bear is huge.
So
and, you know, I want all the animals to be very big and intimidating. I don't want them to be, you know, because if, you know, anybody can have a cheetah or a wolf or, you know, a hawk, you know, those aren't necessarily, you know, I mean, yeah, they could be scary if they're snarling or whatever, but if you make them twice the size that they normally are, now you've got like a dire wolf from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Who doesn't love that stuff, man?
That's a lot more scary.
Already that imagery that you just said about, you know, your main character riding a giant bear, like, to me, it's like, oh, that's cool, man. You know, like that.
I mean, it's, you know, we basically what it is these 3 teenage kids are going to find out that they're part of an ancient tribe. Okay. And
it's like you're saying too much. I caught it.
No, I was just gonna see where Ollie goes with this, but okay.
No, they're gonna find out throughout so we're doing a 4-issue origin story, basically. Okay,
it's up here. I've got it.
And you know, throughout these 4 books, Sarah wants the reader to find out, you know, they want the reader to find out what's going on when the main character does.
The main character, she's under an assumption. Careful, I know. She's under an assumption that what she believes to be true is true, and it might not be.
Okay, right on.
So
yeah, she thinks her parents are archaeologists. That's what she's trying to avoid saying. She thinks her parents are archaeologists, and she doesn't understand why they're not in her life. Basically, she lives with grandma, And, as you go through the first book and it's bouncing back and forth between those arcs, you're going to come to a realization that, what she thinks she knows, she doesn't know.
Right. And is about to find out.
Yeah. And, in book 2, we'll bring more of that to light. But basically, they're going to find out that eventually in the series that they're part of an ancient tribe. The tribe has the ability to create magical jewelry. And some of the folks, some of the tribesmen that wear this jewelry, they have their charm bracelets, basically. And they can bring those animal charms to life to fight beside them. So, that's been one of the, the fun things is trying to figure out what animals we want different charm bearers to have, what they can do, what happens if an animal gets hurt in battle, all this stuff. It's just taken a lot of, planning and thought process to make sure that we don't leave holes. Sarah hates holes. So
I despise them.
Well, as an avid novel reader, I mean, we hate the holes, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to jump over here into Morgan for a little bit.
Wombat.
I know he's got some.
I haven't thought of a wombat.
I'm down for the wombat.
I want a kangaroo.
Now, we've met. Yeah, I feel inspired now. We may need a kangaroo.
Kangaroo. You guys,
Get a giant rainbow lorikeet, mate. Just don't let him eat mangoes, or that thing will be uncontrollable.
The whole idea with this too is that they were dispersed, like among. I started in Appalachia because it's near and dear to my heart, and I can write that. But the idea being that so it wouldn't be unheard of to run into somebody down the road from a different team of
different countries
from different countries, and they could potentially have a kangaroo.
I got my ass kicked by a mongoose once.
Yeah,
like that's not even a joke. Like I had a ferret when I was a kid, and I thought it was the coolest little thing in the world. Whatever, we'll go into Chupacabra next week.
A really big rooster is a scary thing for me. Maybe who knows?
No, I need
never know.
Scarier than that. I'll bring you guys on to talk Chupacabra.
I know.
So we when I moved to Hawaii, I moved to into Hilo on the Big Island, and I couldn't take my ferret. So my ferret stayed with my mom and dad, and I got real drunk one day, like real drunk, and I don't know, it was 22 years. I was probably 20 probably, 2021. And I walked outside. I was with my neighbor, who big old Samoan dude, thought it was fun to fuck with me constantly, right? And there's this animal, and it's like chilling on my grass in my front yard. And I was like, that's a ferret. I'm going to catch it, and I'm going to bring it inside. Not a ferret, okay? So me being smart, because I've raised big reptiles a good portion of my life, I go inside, I get the metal working gloves, and I come back out, and I'm determined to this is on film somewhere. I'll have to post it eventually. But it was there, and I was like, cool, I'm going to go get him. And he didn't run from me. No, oh no. I went forward to pick him up, and up my arm he went and attached himself to my eyebrow, like my socket of my eye, like his mouth was attached to it. I could not get him off. So it looked like that scene out of Saving Silverman with Dude and the Raccoon. And I literally fell backwards with this big furry object on my face. And I couldn't get him off for like 5 minutes. And my buddy's just sitting there laughing so hard. And then a kid rides by on a bike and is laughing so hard. And I'm just like, never going to live this down anyway. Only Holly on the street, so everybody knows me as it is. So now I'm the guy that got his ass whooped by the four-legged little rodent.
And what's funny, mate, is out there somewhere that kid and your old neighbor are going to have moments in their life where they're sitting around having a barbecue or whatever, like shooting the breeze with their mates, and they're going to talk about this dude who had this mongoose attached to his head, rolling around the front yard.
I'm sure that story goes around. I'm sure that one goes around. I'm sure kamikaze ferrets, exactly. I'm sure the hitting the dude in the middle of the night, because I grew up in Jacksonville and he was in my house type of deal. That story goes around, I'm sure too. But yeah, there's my stories. They get to be pretty epic, and that's how some of these tales in our books come about. Because I'm quite the adventurer, to say the least.
Oh, I thought you were going to say embellisher.
No, that is awful. Like I was bloody and scratched up for about a month before that stuff started healing. I've got a big
embellishing is good as well, Dustin.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, if you're putting a story together, if you're putting
Right.
out like fish tales, or Big Fish, I mean, that was a great film back in the day. But if you're putting out stuff like that, yeah, But then again, I can't exactly embellish on dinosaur chicks and stuff like that, unless I'm embellishing regions on them that whatever. I let Joe and all them handle those type of things, or Steph. I let Steph Wilson handle the circles. So if he wants to embellish,
yes,
embellish.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, so we're getting into Morgan, guys. Morgan, tell us what you're so fantastic at other than music, because we know that's a fact already. So let's get into some comic talk with the great Morgan Quaid.
Comics, the great. I'm going to start using that.
You should.
The great.
The great. Yeah. So comics, I like them, and I think they're good, and I think we should do more of them. Yeah, I started in novels, and then was a failed indie novelist for many years, and then picked up an indie comic, looked at that. I think it was an Image comic. I think it was Chew was the first series that I picked up. Mm-hmm. Started looking at it and thought, what have I been doing with my life? Because I should have been doing this and not trying to find a literary agent and all this other sort of stuff. Yeah, and then I started writing comics, and then away we go. Artwork, working with artists, the whole thing. I made every dumb mistake you could ever make. You know how we're talking about the balloons and, the lettering and all that sort of stuff. I've always done my own lettering, and if you look at the early stuff I've done, it's terrible. It's really bad. It's all the mistakes you could make about, capital I's and the long words at the top and the bottom and the bubbles in the wrong spot, and way too much text. I mean, exhausting text to read through.
You're a novelist, man. Get out of here.
Well, that's it. That's right. I mean, on the novel side, I'm always pushing myself, because I usually write around 90,000 words. So I'm always having to push myself. Come on, man, write more. Readers want more. They want more detail. They want more. And then on the comic side, it's like, you can't do that, man. Don't write so much. Can you put the idea in a small bubble? That's what we want. We don't want, So yeah, it's a bit of a fun one going between there. But yeah. So my latest project is Shadow's Daughter. That was on Kickstarter. Had great fun on Kickstarter. Really, really cool campaign. Lots of cool people. Yeah, so that was really cool.
I'm loving the animal ideas. They're cracking me up.
Those are horrible human beings. I'm totally writing these stories now. Ill-tempered, mutated. Yes.
That's from. What's that
Austin
from?
Powers.
Yes.
That's right. Austin. Yeah, in the the tank.
I'm about this life right now.
Yes. So Shadow's Daughter is basically about a bounty hunter lady person who can bend Shadow to her will and use it as a physical force, or weapon, or a shield, or any of that sort of stuff. And the whole series is essentially, she's incredibly overpowered as a person. So the whole series is about what happens if that is taken away from her, and how does she deal with that, and all of that sort of stuff. And it's kind of in a sideways world that's like our world, but where a demon moon rose 30 odd years ago, and at the time that it rose, it's sort of hung in the sky, and then all of these preternatural beings started coming out, like vampires, werewolves, those sorts of things. A percentage of the population was turned into those sort of creatures, like 2% or something, not a lot. But so the resulting world is sort of split between normal people that live in their kind of walled enclaves, and then the remade creepy people that come out at night when the red moon rises again. And Summer, who is the bounty hunter, her whole thing is she goes out and brings people in and gets money for bringing in the bad dudes. And that's pretty much her whole thing. She's not motivated by truth or justice or trying to save the world or anything. She's motivated by paying her rent and getting a new bike, essentially, motorbike.
The one thing I noticed about your campaign too, mate, is it's not just a single issue with, like add-ons and stuff like that. It's actually, I would say it's a giant campaign of 6 issues. That's correct, of like a whole limited series, like in just one big kabang. There you go. With that was impressive when I saw it pop up on Facebook. I was like, man, you are a worker, I tell you. Like to get that out. My next question to you, bud, is because I haven't talked to you in ages. It's been ages since I've seen you.
Yeah, I did.
It has been a long time. How long were you working on that? And do you have a different artist for every issue, or did you break down the artist so you can do 2 issues, like that sort of thing? What were your thought processes on that? Because that seems like a massive campaign of comics that you did.
Yeah, it was a big bit of work. So that there are 2 primary comics that are 64 pages and 52 pages, and they're full color, and they're the main story. So they get you about halfway through the main story, which came originally from a novel. And then I was trying to beef up the campaign a bit because I thought, 100 pages isn't enough. We need more. I was trying to, get a lot of substance to it, and then I realized I'd not written anything about Summer's life prior to that main story, and there's like 20 years of her working as a bounty hunter, but there's only sort of allusions and things. So I thought I'll get some other artists and I'll write some of these short standalone episodes or spin-off novels from her earlier career, because it's all open. I can do whatever I want. Then it's kind of a manga style, but not fully manga. And I thought I'll do them in black and white for 2 incredibly important reasons. Number one, so much cheaper, like a quarter of the price. So I could do 4 books for the price it would cost me to put 1 out. And I thought for these sort of things, that would work really well. And also the speed of getting them through. So I originally had planned only to do 2. So two color, 2 black and white. And then with the paper shortages and all that sort of stuff, my last campaign went on a little bit. So I thought, well, I'll write another 2. And writing the episodes was really different. Normally I'll write a script and then that'll go to the artist and then it'll go back and forward. But with the manga artists I was working with, there were three new artists. They prefer storyboards. So they prefer stick figures showing who's doing what where, which is a lot more work up front, but it was also kind of nice to do that. And they're really action focused stories as well. So it means, I can kind of position people where I roughly think. Then the pages come back and they're like 1,000 times better than what I could think of myself, but it gives them at least an idea of kind of what to go for. So there were 3 artists on the manga. There were 2 different artists on the original ones because one actually moved into animation and stopped doing sequential art, so I lost one. And then there are another 3 issues that are only being released as digitals, as stretch goals at the moment, that are already done, or the last one's being completed. So yeah, it's one of those things that was a happy accident. All kind of worked, and it meant I could put a lot in one campaign. So when people support it, they get like a whole backstory as well as the main issues, and it gets us up to about halfway in the series.
And plans for more, mate?
Yeah, well, for the first time, I put an offer in the Kickstarter campaign for someone to co-write, so they could buy a tier where they pay for a certain portion of the artwork, and then they are a co-writer on that issue. We write it together. They get a writer credit. The series has actually been picked up by Marcosia, so it's going to go worldwide once the campaigns are done. So it's good for them. It's a known entity. It's definitely going to happen for a fledgling kind of writer or someone that just wants to dip their toe into it. They could do it. So 3 of those were actually picked up, which really surprised me. I wasn't expecting anyone, but three people were interested. So it means I need to do at least another 3. And there's another 2 of the main story that I think I can get it done within 2 to finish that off. So there's at least another 1 or 2 campaigns going before I can get right through it. Yeah. I'm thinking of a coloring book, a journal, also because the artwork, there's so much artwork and it's this amazing stuff. So, Morgan Quaid and the Pursuit of Kish Cash. Thought it would be a good idea to do some of these other things as well and get them out there, Christmas gifts.
I don't know. I think that's a very interesting thing you bring up. Okay. That's something that we have we have looked at on several occasions right now, and it's going to make you guys laugh. And it's in the vein of the pillowcases that we just put out. I don't know if you guys saw those, but we did body pillowcases that have implants for the body pillowcases. Super fun.
I mean, Mendoza did the body pillows, but he didn't do the implants.
Yeah, we had to add the
It's
implants.
provided many chuckles. Don't you worry about that for me when I heard that.
I am always striving to be different, and do different things with our projects. And like I said, we've done soap, we've done bone dice sets, we've done all kinds of really cool stuff. But you mentioned a coloring book, and I have to bring it up because it brings it right in the middle of a conversation I literally just had with Trevor Grace. And if you know Trevor Grace, you know right where this conversation will go. But such a good dude. But we're going to put out an ethereal art book this year at some point. And it'll be like Girls of Ethereal Comics, or some such thing. But we're going to do one that's black and white for coloring specific, and then one that's a normal art book. So I was really, really excited to see people start doing that. And it'll make you laugh, Morgan, Sarah too, probably actually, where this evolved from, because I was approached about butts of babes, gore, and dinosaurs is where it came from. And it was an art book that was approached to me to do, and loved it. Absolutely love this concept.
The last page should be like your mammoth butt, like on the
I'm telling you. But it was a really funny conversation, and I was like, I can't do an art book of butts. Like, it's got to be more than butts. So
more substance than butts. So
right?
boobs,
good, right? I mean, it's got to be something, But it was super fun. I'm glad to see more and more people break that wall with their fan base. Because anything that you can do to involve your fans is a win for you. If you come out and you're like, hey, look, we're going to do a new jingle. Let's say we're doing a jingle, because that's another one we've got going on for the business right now. We've got a jingle coming out. So with the jingle, it was involve a couple fans. You know what I mean? What did they think would be a cool way to represent ethereal comics, and some, and anything like that you can do to make the experience more, instead of being such a flat plane, anything that you can do to elevate that experience, and people remember that and they appreciate it. If you're like, hey, what do you think about this? It makes you feel good, right? As long as it's not some asshole coming to your door asking you to fill out a survey. I mean, you're okay. There's a lot to see, and there's a lot to do in this industry. So if you take just a minute moment to reach out to your fans, see how they feel about certain things, like Todd did it, Russ, back in the day really well. He did the the pages in the back of the comics where he would be like, hey, it's Todd talk or something.
Right. And the people would submit their fan art. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, Marat did a Do You Poo coloring book a couple years back through Comics Elite, and actually on this last Kickstarter that was a Red Sonja crossover, he basically did they called it the Raw edition, so it was just black and white. So there was, the art inside was not colored, and there was no letterings because the art was so nice on the inside. That he wanted to give the black and white fans, something that, from that. But I mean, to your point, Dustin, I think the big thing is that, when you look at mainstream fans versus indie fans, they're two different
absolutely
breeds of people. Your mainstream fans are backing characters. They follow Superman, or they've bought Batman comics forever, or they love Spider-Man, right? They don't care. They don't necessarily care. I shouldn't say that all of them, but most of them don't care. Who the writer was, who the artist was. They don't know names. Right. They just buy the comic book. They get it every month in their pool box, and that's the way they go.
For sure.
Indie fans are different. Indie fans, they haven't really had time to get attached to a character because indie characters haven't been around long enough.
Right.
So they get attached to creators and artists, and they get attached to the ones that, like you say, interact the most. So if they're doing live streams, like, Steph Wilson was on here earlier, every Thursday night, he does a, draw with Steph kind of thing where he draws and other people draw with him, that kind of thing. That's interactive. And that's why he has such a huge social media following. And, they know who the artist is. They know their family. They know what their family does. They know when they're sick, and they become part of their family. It's like a clique, really.
Absolutely.
And that's that when that happens, they back whatever that project that person is doing. So that's why to indie artists and indie creators, it's so important to develop that relationship with your fans. So
you sell yourself, like, just
yeah.
in a lighter tone of it, you sell yourself, because
Right.
like you mentioned, there's not enough content right now, and for people to be like, oh, that's my favorite character. Like, I can be like, people vibe with Maya from BGD all day long. People talk about Maya, people enjoy Maya. Same thing with Agent C. We just put out the preview, and people are getting their previews this week. I mean, they started coming out already, but it's like, everybody was talking about C before C came out. You know what I mean? Like, she's been an interesting character, but that has to do with, when you create a character, is it memorable? You know what I mean? Can a person go, oh yeah, I saw that. You know what I mean? I saw that that bunny rabbit chick. People are talking about the bunny rabbit chick. You know who I'm talking
Right.
about? And then you're like, oh yeah, I got that. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's probably because Dustin's on social media like 90% of his life anymore to make sure that people know about that.
I mean, there are a couple exceptions to that rule, and and that's mainly, Brian Pulido and Billy Tucci, because Brian Pulido's got Lady Death and Billy's got She.
For sure.
Those characters have been around since the early 90s, right? So they've got the iconic character that everybody knows, and they've also basically built their followings in indie comics. The Sworn Nation
Absolutely.
is a huge following, right? And that's why those two guys make over 300 to 400K on Kickstarter, is because they're pulling from their mainstream backers that love the iconic character and the indie backers.
For sure.
So they're the case in point. I do some work for Dan Mendoza, and Dan Mendoza, he's got a style that everybody loves, but he had Zombie Tramp, and then somehow another publisher got Zombie Tramp, and Zombie Tramp ended up getting distributed in local comic shops across the country. And now Dan has Zombie Tramp back, right? And
that sounds like Lady Death right there, doesn't it?
Right. And so what happens when Dan gets Zombie Tramp back and puts it on Kickstarter the first time? Boom, 275K. Because he's able to pull from all of the folks that were buying this thing, this book in their local comic book store, and his indie, his indie fans. So, it's definitely a leg up to be able to pull from both.
For sure.
Have an iconic character.
I think that, and that plays into what Morgan, see, the difference is, and that's one thing that I love about doing our show the way that we do it, with Australia and the US being different types of markets. Like, if you look at Lee right now, and he's a very humble dude, and he doesn't often toot his own horn, but he has his fans come to his house to buy his stuff. Like, that's how well the man is known over there. They literally come to his house to pick up the new issues. And to me, that is just the coolest thing in the world. You know what I mean? Like, your fan base is so cool that they just show up and they're like, hey, Chalker's over there. He's got his new issue out. I'm going to go grab that. You know what I mean? It's
no, they have. They let
That's
me
awesome.
know they're coming, and but sometimes, they run a bit late, so I could be in the middle of mowing or something, and, they stop me in the front yard and have a yarn and that. But yes, this is true. I do have regulars that come over that have stopped me at shopping centres and Woolworths and Coles and different things like that. And I've invited them over, and they regularly come over, and we talk, comics, show each other our collections and stuff like that. So, I think
That's the way to do it.
That's the game, dude.
That's it.
look, mate, I enjoy it. I have no dilemmas with it, like, because I like talking comics. I've been reading comics since I was a little boy. I think the one thing that I've sort of learned is, in my limited time of doing it, is what we've said. You've got to be strong to your creative idea and word. You have to be open in this day of social media. Like, I would be lying if I didn't tell you I do get messages from people at all hours of the day at random times, like talking about things and comic books and stuff. But that's cool. That's just what it is, I mean, these are the things that I enjoy. So, I mean, for me, Morgan and Dustin know the story is, I've grown up in a garrison town in far north Queensland, which is, the closest city, sister city to us is 350 kilometres north and south, so the closest capital city is Brisbane, where Morgan lives, and that's 1,500 kilometres away. So that's not an easy trek to, get there. Before social media and stuff, it was a case of you were just out by yourself and, drawing away and hoping that one day, a dream of, publishing a comic book had come true. And in the last couple of years with things like, podcasts and live streaming and, realizing that there's a community in Australia of fellow creators like Morgan and stuff, and many, many others that are in the same boat as what we were, thinking that we were alone. And we've all been able to come together and talk. And, I'm very comfortable with sending Morgan a message if I haven't, spoken to him for a bit, and he does the same. And there's others that we all frequently, interact and yarn and, give each other thumbs up on their work and very interested in each other's stuff. I mean, that's, to me, has probably been the most enjoyable thing. And if there's other people that felt like me, isolated or didn't know what was going on, and for some particular reason they want to reach out and, have a yarn and, maybe, give themselves a kick up the bum because, they can see that I've brought out a couple of comic books and kept doing it, and that gets them going, then I'm more than happy to do that, man. That is one of the great pleasures I've got, So
do you guys do shows? Do you guys go to conventions and stuff? I mean, pre-COVID.
Well, over the COVID period, there's been a lot of shows that haven't been going on.
Right,
a lot of the shows that have been going on are in major capital cities like your Melbournes and your Sydneys and stuff. And for like Morgan and I, we live in a state called Queensland, and it's basically up until Morgan, just before Christmas, has been in a total lockdown. No one in, no one out for probably 18 months. So borders are just opening up now, and shows are starting to roll through. So I assume that life for comic creators and stuff and promoters will kick into gear, back to a certain normality at some point in the near future. But mate, it's fun to be part of it, and having met Dustin randomly through a crazy calendar, thing that happened, and my artwork was selected randomly to be in this calendar, and Dustin was on a live show that we were on, and then from yarning you find yourself sitting here talking. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, comics, man. How can all bring people together. So no, I'm all for it, mate.
Prophetic shit right there, man. You know what I mean? That's like getting real into the heartstrings about comic books. I thoroughly agree with you. Let's see like what we've got. So Morgan, your book is live now, right?
Yeah, it's live on the Indiegogo.
Right.
I do everything through Kickstarter primarily, and it just works for me, and I get a lot more responses. Not so much on the Indiegogo, but I'm still keen to try, and they're out there. I know people are out there. They just don't seem to.
Well,
come my way.
Speaking of that particular thing and what's going on with Kickstarters and whatnot, I can make $10,000 on Kickstarter, but I can't make $200 on Indiegogo. So I totally get your, your vibe with that. It's a very different element when you step over there. Because like over here, Russ mentioned it, and I say over here, but over on Kickstarter, not over here. You've built a fan base, right? You've built a fan base. So when you go over to Indiegogo and you go to pitch on Indiegogo, you don't have your fan base with you any longer. Now you're trying to build another fan base in itself.
That's right.
So it's a very it's daunting as well, for anybody to go from one to the other. And I applaud you for trying, and I hope it goes well. I'm very excited for the book. I think it's you're one of those people that I pay attention when they put out a project. You know what I mean? It's because, like I said, there's a million books out there, right? So, and we can't pick up every one of them. You know what I mean? So we try to pay attention to, as many as we possibly can. But I think you guys, all three of you that are on tonight with us, have a great projects. You know what I mean? They're a lot of fun, unique in their own way. And have a good evening. I wish I knew who it was. But it's a very it's not an easy thing to do, to come out in this day and age and go, I have a unique story. I have something you haven't seen before. Right. So I'm super thankful for folks that can do that, because that's what I look for. I chase that kind of thing. You know what I mean? I like to pride myself on our books being different than everything else. With the exception of Theater 7, you guys are gonna. Theater 7 is unique in its own way, but you guys will enjoy it, I promise. With Devin Massey coming on for that book, like running the show on that book, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think you guys will enjoy his stuff. If you're a Cave Woman fan, you're definitely going to enjoy Theater 7. But there's something to be said about each of your concepts. Like if you take, like right now, superhero books are real hard, like real hard to pitch in this day and age, because superheroes have been around forever. Like I have no superhero books. I have no illusion of saying that I'm ever going to do a superhero book. But if I had a cool idea, like a Marat with Do You Poo, you know what I mean? That's a cool concept, and the covers are phenomenal. The characters are recognizable enough in a way that people enjoy them. You know what I mean? And you can do things like that as long as you stick out. If you stick out, you find your niche. That's so important, to find your niche. And then you build your fan base from your niche, especially with a superhero book. You're talking about a book where you're like, well, this chick gets her shadow powers taken away from her, so it's a reverse type of superhero book. Now I'm having to live without being a superhero. What am I going through now that I didn't have to go through as a superhero? Oh, I'm going to fly to the supermarket. Oh, shit. I can't fly to the supermarket no more. I got to walk, or I got to take the car. You know what I mean? And like our buddy and teammate as well, JT Malloy, he's got Sapphire Spectre. And the brand new issue comes out. Issue 3 comes out at the end of this month. I think on the 30th. It goes to Kickstarter. But it's very unique. You know what I mean? His main character dies to come back to life as a spirit and fight bad guys, and then can bring herself back to life. You know what I mean? It's a very interesting concept. And those are the types of things that I look for. Like which a lot of you guys don't know is starting this year, we're publishing other writers' books through Ethereal Comics. So you guys are going to start seeing stuff from Ethereal Down Under from different writers, and from Ethereal here in the States from different writers, and even Ethereal After Dark later on this year, you'll see different writers on and stuff. But it's all stuff that hasn't been done. I can't. I want to tell you that if you're going to do a story that's anything like somebody else's, reach out there, carve your niche, do it different, just enough so people get you. And Russ, it's such a powerful thing when people talk about it. When you are pitching yourself as a human being, you know what I mean? Go out there, let people know you're reliable, do your shit on time, put the books out right, give people respectable artwork. You know what I'm saying? And I don't mean NSFW artwork. That's great. But if you're going to give it to them good. Give them good artwork. Give them stuff they can sink their teeth into, concepts they can sink their teeth into. You know, you're not all writers. You're not all artists. We're not. You know what I mean? So we rely on our teams to get the rest of this stuff across. You know, if I didn't have folks that I could work with and go, hey, can you bring this to life? I'd be in a poor place. You know what I mean? I would. I don't draw. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say Kevin Eastman concept, but when I first started putting stuff together, it was all sketches. I'm a graphics engineer and I don't draw. So when I send stuff to people, it's literally doodles that I've put together, and I'm like, hey, check this out. And my best doodles look like thumbnails from these guys, right? So it's like, then they're like, oh yeah, because they're used to thumbnails, so they can like translate my bullshit sketches to something cool, right? So, but I just want to say that I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate you coming and hanging out. I appreciate your projects very much so. And I know they're both doing incredibly well. At least from my perspective, I think they're doing very, very well. And I think you guys are building something really, really cool. What's going on, Shannon? But that's awesome, man. Thank you. It's a
Shannon's awesome. Shannon did a cover for my book. So
are we going to get to see the updated version of that one here shortly?
Well, so Becky is doing one of my ideas was, so Shannon Mayer is a cover artist for Marvel and DC.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I basically approached Becky and said, hey, I'd love to get you guys to be able to do a cover together. Becky is Shannon's girlfriend.
Right.
And, you know, but Becky was like, Shannon's never going to let me touch his art. And I'm like, no, I get that. But however, there was a gimmick that used to be used called acetate covers. So acetate is a clear plastic cover, and you could print something on it like blood spots or something like that, and then you could open it and see like the, you know, unbloodied cover type of thing, right? So basically what I said is, Becky, you know, what if you did a border? Okay, you draw a border, and we print that on acetate and attach that to the cover. So it'll look like Shannon's art has a border to it, but then the person can, you know, basically flip the acetate up and see Shannon's, you know, art without the border as well. And she loved that idea. So she's working on the border now, and she had, like, last week dropped her iPad and cracked the screen. So she just got the replacement in. She was transferring files to it. So she's trying to finish that up, but I'm not going to rush her because I know how horrible you feel when you drop something, you know, like a tablet or a computer, and, you know, every file that you have is on that machine.
Absolutely.
So I'm just like, you know, take your time. We'll figure it out. But yeah, if she's able to get that done, we'll definitely share it out before the end of the Kickstarter. I think we have 5 days left now. So
yeah, you guys are killing it. That's a beautiful cover, by the way. You guys actually, and Mark May did a beautiful cover for you guys. You guys have got some really, really pretty covers for that book right now.
They're all really pretty.
I've been very fortunate over the last, you know, because I've only been in the industry for, you know, 3.5 years, basically.
Yeah.
Right. But because I've been working for Marat, you know, Marat's been around since the 90s. He's done, you know, he was Robert Liefeld's first assistant at Image. You know, so he's a big name in the industry. And, you know, since I do so much work for him, everyone else is like, well, if Marat trusts you, you know, you must be an okay guy. And that's how I've been able to get, you know, a lot of the work I've done. I think your Kickstarter that just launched was the number 29 or 30 for the last 15 months. But I love it. I mean, I love helping new creators, and you know, especially, you know, just get their feet off the ground and help them with their crowdfunding projects, and
even listing a whole list of them in ours. Like, I don't know if you saw that at the bottom.
But that's
a ton of, if you don't, you know, other things to consider.
I mean, not everybody's going to like our project. So I mean, I might as well list other people that I know's project. That way they can go through and
It's just who he is.
maybe find something else that they
And
like.
see, that's something that you guys need to take to heart. If they're doing that, can you imagine? You know what I mean? Like how much they give a shit about the community and stuff. I love that. There was a guy somebody will correct me by the end of the evening or tomorrow, I'm sure. If not, Bladen will get a hold of me. There was a gentleman that's a writer, a novelist that just came out today, and pretty sure he backed every comic campaign under the sun today. So he just put out a project. I think he did, I don't know, 300, 400,000 on his project.
Holy cow.
And he just came out, but he's been writing since the 80s. I wish I could remember his name. I'll get with you guys and make sure everybody knows it. My campaign wasn't live when he did that, but I'm very thankful to someone that would go out and support the community like that. I think it's just the coolest thing in the world. So Morgan, why don't you give us your what you got going on, man? Where people can find you, what people can get from you, what you got, the website, all the good jazz.
Cool. Thanks, dude. Yeah. So if you go to morganquaid.com, you can find links to pretty much everything I'm doing. Indiegogo's got Shadow's Daughter on it at the moment, and there's links on the page. But yeah, there's a bunch of other books and other projects coming, and novels and stuff for those that like to read many, many words without the pictures. All that sort of stuff's on there. And yeah, by all means, anyone get in touch. Similar to Lee, I'm always happy to chat with people, whether it's comics or writing or, indie stuff, anything. Get in touch and yeah, happy to have a chat.
I love it.
And I can definitely recommend Morgan's stuff. I am the proud owner of several of his works, and it's most enjoyable. If you ever get a chance to pick up a comic of his called Idle Thuggery, check it out, because I particularly like that one. I won't go into the details of it, but that's a good spin on, it's a Morgan spin on comics.
Who doesn't like a Morgan spin, right?
Yeah.
Good times.
Thanks, dude.
So, and then we've got Russ and Sarah, who've got charms right now for those of you guys that are coming in. So why don't you guys tell us where we can find you and a little bit more about charms before we get out of here.
Yeah, so I guess I'm, Russ Cass on Instagram, just RUSSCASS. That's probably the best place to get a hold of me. My Facebook's just about full. But yeah, I mean, we'd love to have folks reach out and back the Charms book so that we can put out books 2, 3, and 4. Sarah's got like 85% of book 2 written for the fall. So it's gonna happen. I've got some great artists lined up for cover work for book 2 already. Some big name folks, but yeah, I mean, like I said, it's it's magic, animals, karate, all kinds of cool stuff. I'm
a Beastmaster fan, so you guys are definitely speaking my language. And I'm not talking about WoW, though I was a Beastmaster Hunter fan on WoW. So,
yeah.
But
someone else still plays Warcraft. So.
He keeps scheduling these on my raid nights.
You know what? Don't do that. That's
this is not tonight. Tonight was good.
Last
night.
Yeah, I quit raiding like 6 months ago. So it was one thing or another, right? So
he last night he's like, because they had done it, who signed on is how they did the order.
Right.
On the show he was on last night, and literally our raid ended because it ends at 10 sharp, like they don't go past it.
Right.
And so he killed his camera. I slid in, and then
we were on.
Yeah. Let me get that computer, dude. I got stuff to do. So no, Beastmaster is actually a film from the 80s.
Oh yeah, I know.
Great film. For the
I love that film, man. When I was
a kid, attacking mongooses as well.
Yeah. Such a sad ending, but an uplifting one as well. Like
so good. So good.
Mind you, though, to veer off quickly on another, Prime out here, Amazon's got a whole heap of those 80s fantasy films, man, on it at the moment. And I watched Beastmaster, maybe like 2-3 months ago, and I got into this like, yeah, I'm going to go back and watch all these fantasy, like movies that I watched as a kid. And wow, things were certainly different back then, weren't they?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Some of those films are, yeah.
I don't know if the comics code would like me or Marat right now. So
Yeah.
I don't think BGD would get anywhere if the comics code had anything to say about it.
Yeah.
Oh no.
That's great. I think Charms to me sounds like really awesome, man. You know, like particularly after the conversation tonight. Like I like the concepts. I actually, when Dustin posted a cover up to advertise you guys on the show the other day, I actually, that caught my attention immediately. So the concept and meeting you two tonight, and you know, like seeing how you work, because in a strange way, like I said, I guess I'm the face of my comic book Battle for Bustle, but much like yourselves, my partner Tamra is right here with me doing everything behind the scenes, from writing and layouts and everything. So I get, you know, where you're coming from, and it's encouraging to see two other people, you know, like going through the same boat in another part of the world. You know?
Always smooth.
That's right. I've got a lot of cool ideas and concepts for you guys. A lot of stuff coming down the pipe I need to talk to Morgan about too. But there is something that I want to say from the bottom of my heart to everybody that is watching or is watching later. Thank you so very much for supporting your indie books, your indie creators. Right now, if you go to the listener campaign right now, we're at $472 in an hour and 40 minutes. And that's awesome. You know, that's very, very cool. It's about halfway through this campaign, or the funding for this campaign. And I'm really grateful, really excited about it. Don't forget, this is a trade paperback as well in this campaign that you guys can pick up, which is issues 1 through 4, plus Guy's Journal. And Guy's Journal was printed in limited print. And it basically went out to friends and family when we put that book out, because it was an art book. It was actually Gabby's first art book. She didn't have one before, and with all the work she'd put into the listener, I wanted to make sure she had one. So you guys can check that out. You'll get that with it. I'm thankful, from literally no BS, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you all so much. Thank you for making Comics Unbound so much fun. You know, we have the greatest folks on here. We get to BS, we get to talk about whatever we want, and we get to show folks cool things from across the ocean, man. It's just awesome. Right now, if you guys have coming in later, you know, you've got Russ and Sarah in the US and Morgan over there in Queensland. You really get to see some really, really cool folks, some different styles, you know, and very shortly you'll have Ethereal in the US and in Queensland. So I'm very, very hyped about that. I'm really, really trying to get this motion moving in such a positive direction.
Well, I mean, Dustin, I mean, it's paving the road. I mean, right now, one of the biggest issues for indie creators, you know, on Kickstarter and IGG, is shipping.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where if we're able to bridge that somehow, where we've got.
We had interest in ours, and they just had to do the $5 one because
we weren't offering the shipping overseas
right now.
But if we have folks that are able to do the shipping within those countries, and we can just send them the files and they can print and ship, within that country, that's a huge.
We're going to offer something that we haven't talked about a lot with a lot of people, but creators that vibe with Bladen, Lee, and myself, we're going to work on printing in countries for them. You know what I mean? It'll be through a branch of Ethereal Comics, but it'll still be their product and stuff. It'll be just like you would print Spider-Man in Mexico back in the day, or Spider-Man in the UK. You know what I mean? It's all the same deal. It's just you're printing under a company over there, you know, and all those projects will have different covers. So let's say we did Charms over there, it'd be Australian artists that did covers for Charms over there. You know what I mean?
That's an interesting idea.
that's something that we're working on right now with Lee and the listener and everything else.
So, because again, you won't have the shipping issues, and you'll have
Absolutely.
local fan bases
Yep.
and to tap.
Yeah, but I mean, if you've got, if you have like Dan Mendoza, Dan Mendoza ships, a ton of books overseas.
Did you see that truck that he had at his house the other day?
It's insane. He has a whole team that does his fulfillment, and he
Right.
does it at his house in his garage. And I mean, he ships thousands of books every campaign. And if he had, a printer that he could trust in Europe and a printer that he could trust in Australia, in the Middle East, and that, that he didn't have to worry about shipping that much. I mean, it's going to bring the cost down for all the buyers as well.
So like I said, in a year, right, just over a year, maybe 15, 16 months, we've put out 9 books. We'll have 8 running IPs by the end of this year, and then we're working on this shipping stuff. And like I said, 3 different branches of Ethereal Comics by the end of the year. So I have a lot of cool stuff going on that I would love to talk about.
Yeah.
But I get in a lot of trouble for talking about because I love my wife, and Bladen's amazing, and even Lee, they'll all get me if I don't behave. So, there's a lot to see coming.
He's
soon.
going to throw something at you.
Yeah, no, somebody will, or somebody will text my wife, and all of a sudden she'll come in here and the screen will go blank. You know what I mean? It won't be good. There'll be like garrote marks on my neck when the light comes back on and stuff.
Glass is broken.
Right? Yeah. I'm all like laying over, like, twitching and stuff. Darts.
That's what our battles look like with Charmed. No.
Yeah, exactly. And they're good. Don't
Yeah.
mess with me. Don't mess with me. Those are good fight scenes. I absolutely love them. And you guys have, talking about the spiritual aspects of it and stuff. You guys don't just have animals and guns in your books either. And that's all I'm going to say about that, which is amazing. No. So very, very hyped about it. But anyway, thank you all for hanging out with us so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
It was nice meeting everybody.
Nice meeting you, mate.
Guys. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more Russ and Sarah. We're going to see a lot more Morgan. But anyway, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. You know me. You know where to find me. Lee. You know where to find Lee. And right now, the listener's live, guys. So make sure you guys swing by that URL down there at the bottom of the screen that's been tinging away the whole time. Hit that thing. Check it out. We're very, very proud of everyone involved. All 34 members of Ethereal Comics. We're proud of all of them for everything they've put into this project and everything they've put into this business. So thank you so very much from me and my family to you and yours. Have a great evening, guys.
You too.
See you guys.
Thanks all.